So during youth group on Sunday night, we walked through some practical steps to take when we feel like we may have lost our influence. One of those steps was confession. And confession simply means telling the whole truth, the entire story, when it comes to a mistake that you've made. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. When we allow someone else into the full story of our mistakes, we make ourselves vulnerable. And sometimes when we are vulnerable, that automatically makes us feel weak. And let's be honest, we don't like to feel weak. I've confessed my sins to people before, and I'll admit that there are not that many things harder than confessing to people you love, your family, your friends. We don't like to look bad in these people's eyes. We don't like admitting the fact that we let them down. We don't like to feel weak. And the Bible tells us that where we are weak, Jesus is strong. It is through our weakness that his strength is strongest. We also know that Jesus doesn't use our weakness against us. On Sunday night, we saw how in our weakest positions, Jesus is so quick to forgive us. And it's because of the very belief in him that God doesn't see where or how we got it all wrong. Instead, he simply sees us as his sons and daughters who are loved and valued above all else. God is faithful. He is faithful when we confess. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. Confession starts with being vulnerable and weak before God. It then continues to being vulnerable and weak before others. Like I said, that is an important step for healing. It's an incredibly hard step to take, but it is important. So, for a challenge this morning or this week or maybe even this month, depending on how you receive this, I want to give you a smaller step to take. Start with just confessing to God. I'm not saying only confess to God. I'm saying start with just confessing to God. Maybe you've lost some influence because of a mistake that you've made. That's okay. Today, this morning, can be a fresh start, but it can only be a fresh start if you take the time to vulnerably present yourself before our King and confess. And when I say King, you might even be more intimidated, but this is the very same King who chose to sit and play and listen and talk with children over adults several times when he walked on the earth. Vulnerably come before him in prayer and confession. Begin the new start that he wants to give you. I know it's hard, but it's so